I'd like to ask you a first question about West Coast.
Sure.
I understand that you have been an MP there since 1997. That's about quarter of a century, nearly. So maybe can you share with us about your experience there and how West Coast have progressed over the years?
Well, when you put it like that, it makes me feel very old. In the past 23 years or so, I think things have changed quite dramatically. There was no such thing as social media, very different world we're in. But, and I think in terms of the changes I've seen in West Coast, I mean, certainly the physical developments, we've had so many more developments in terms of condominiums and residential areas. West Coast Park has been significantly enhanced and so on. So it's a variety of things that have changed physically. It's also been a very interesting journey for me from the point of view of my emotional connection with the people. Because, when you've been in a place for that long, in many ways it's also mirrored my own life. Because, I entered when I just got married. I've had children. My children are now, adults. So I think it's been a very transformative, but also a very meaningful journey.
Over the weekend, you told the media that the PAP team has understood in detail and with depth the concerns and the needs of our people, and has mounted national programs as well as local programs. So, can you share with us your plans for West Coast?
You see, that is our ethos always. That when we are elected to represent our people, broad national programs is one aspect, but we need depth and understanding of the specific needs in our communities, in our constituencies, because that is how you then marry the broad sweep of national efforts with some of the nuances in our respective communities. We have been around, in the course of this campaign, talked to many residents in markets, hawker centres, in the void decks, at their doorstep, even through the window sometimes, and talking to all of them. And I think what is uppermost on people's minds is jobs and the economy. It is apparent, the impact of COVID-19, not just on Singapore, but the world. It might sometimes be lost in the hurly-burly of a campaign, but when you talk to people and have a meaningful conversation, this is what comes up time and again. Regardless of age, when we talk about how we deal with it, this is about listening, but also responding. So at the national level, you are already aware, there's the National Jobs Council, and our aim is to create this 100,000 jobs and training opportunities, traineeships. Why are we trying to do that? Because we know that there may be slack in the economy, may not immediately generate the kind of opportunities that people want, but we want to create possibilities for our people to, even in this challenging time, be able to do productive things. And eventually, when the economy recovers, which it will, then they can use this experience for good purpose. But locally, we have also worked on some things. So, for example, it's the Jobs at West Coast initiative. So this is not a national program. This was a local program initiated by my colleagues and myself in order to create not just job possibilities, job opportunities, but also to create a way our residents can access them conveniently. So we have these portals at our community centres. National level, big numbers, targets, break it down into local level initiatives, bringing the opportunities, bringing the assistance closer to the residents, to our people. For seniors, it's the same thing. We have national level programs like the Merdeka Generation program, but we also do things at the local level. This has to be the way we operate. And I think that is the role of an elected representative of the people that goes well beyond managing a town council.
What are some of the local programs that are getting you quite excited about for the next 5 years?
For all Singaporeans, we are thinking about the environment. And so for West Coast in particular, a couple of initiatives that we're moving on. One is solar panels on the roofs of our HDB blocks. So we have decided at the town council level that we will install the solar panels in slightly over 260 blocks. And we've started work on about 40 or 50 of them. At the same time, planting of trees, something that's very close to my heart. Also one of my colleagues in the team, Desmond Lee, about 100,000 trees in our industrial areas and other parts of West Coast. This is something that we are committed to. So these are some of the examples where green environment, sustainable future, this is another area that we are very focused on locally, and that's our contribution to the larger national effort.
I see. And Minister, just now you mentioned one of your new teammates, Minister Desmond, and you have a few new teammates joining your team this
Yes,
time.
indeed.
As a veteran here, do you have any word of advice to your new teammates about how special or unique West Coast is? I'm also curious whether you have passed on some advice from former Anchor Minister Lim Hng Kiang to some of your new colleagues as well.
You know, in our team of 5, 3 of my colleagues actually have, about 10 years of parliamentary experience, because Desmond, Wei Ning and Miha have been in Parliament and serving on the ground since 2011. And the newest member of our team is, of course, Rachel. Mr. Lim Hng Kiang has, he and I were the pioneers of West Coast GRC. West Coast GRC was formed in 1997, so we've been together. And he has always had a very clear, practical approach, which I think we have all imbibed, which has really been to focus on what matters to the people. You know, because at the end of the day, it's not the headlines, it's actually what you're doing on the ground. You stand on your track record, you stay close to the ground, you listen carefully, you act on the concerns, and be honest and straight with the people. If something is hard to do or difficult to achieve, or it can't be done, we will explain why. It may not always be popular, but we have to explain and say so. And if sometimes you have to give up something to get something and the trade-off is a hard one, we will explain that. And hopefully our residents can understand it, and generally they have been very supportive. So that's been our approach. And I think what I'm very happy about is I think we have a good balanced team for the PAP in West Coast GRC. We've put in a great deal of thought, not just about what we want to do, but how we are going to organize ourselves and how we are going to, if we are elected, then serve the residents looking at these issues. Because you need to have a clear plan and a strategy to execute the plan. When that happens, then I think the chances of successfully meeting the needs of your voters and your residents is significantly higher.
What advice would you give to young Singaporeans who are worried and concerned about the current economic crisis? Yeah.
So let me start by saying this. It's not because it's my job description, but in general, I do believe technology is going to be a great enabler for us as a country and for our people in terms of opportunities. And the reason is because Singapore is a small place. So we always talk about punching above our weight. And you need to use strategies that can make us, that can basically serve as a force multiplier for us, right? And so technology is a force multiplier for us. Today, with digital connectivity, every company is born global, because I'm a startup, but I can actually be selling anywhere in the world. I just need the digital connectivity, right? So what does that mean? That means for anyone in Singapore who's got a great idea and a desire to do something, actually you've got unparalleled degrees of freedom. Basically no longer the case that only big companies or very, people who are well-resourced can do these things. The other part, why I'm excited about our future, is because I think, if Singapore were a ship and you can pull up anchor and go anywhere in the world, I would say I would be right here. Yes, we have COVID right now, but leaving that aside, if you ask yourself, where are the opportunities going to be in the next 2 or 3 decades? It's going to be in Asia. China is going to continue to grow. ASEAN is going to continue to grow. South Asia is going to continue to grow. And guess what? We are right in the middle, and we are connected. And all of this means that we are going to be part of a buoyant region. May not feel like that today, but if we can just leave that behind for a moment and think about it from a larger perspective, it is going to be so. Therefore, for young people, I think the sky is the limit. And the challenge for us is how you turn this period, don't waste it, turn it into an opportunity to invest in ourselves so that we can come out of this stronger.
Minister, we have one final question. What will your pitch to first-time voters or second-time voters be, especially since they have not lived through that type of rapid economic progress? So how will you persuade them to stick with PAP during this crisis?
Right.
Yeah, what will be your pitch?
I think what forges a people together and what builds those bonds of trust is not actually times of plenty. It's actually times of crisis. When people talk about the bond between the pioneer generation and the leadership, it was born of the throes of independence and a time of great uncertainty. So for this generation of Singaporeans, this is the defining experience, COVID-19. It's unprecedented in the sense that it is a healthcare challenge, it's a social challenge, it's an economic challenge, and it's a global challenge. Many years from now, we'll be talking about this. And therefore, how we respond is going to be key. In the period of elections, much is said. Often people talk about, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose, and that kind of thing. And the point is because there's a lot of rhetoric, there's a lot of flowery language, there are high promises and so on. But you've got to be discerning. We all have to be discerning because at the end of the day, we must go beyond the broad pitch and look at what is the substance behind that. When somebody puts forward an idea and says that you can get something for nothing, our antennae should go up. Because if indeed you can get something for nothing, it would have been done by now. If you want to get something, you have to give up something. So when someone says to us, I can do this for you, I think it's great, but we have to ask, so what do we have to give up in order to get that? And that's what I mean by being discerning. And that should apply to everyone, all parties. Anyone who wants to win your trust and your vote should have an answer for that. Because that demonstrates a certain integrity in the way you put your proposals across and a certain commitment that you're going to be honest with the voters. The second thing I would say, we should never lose our ideals. As I said, I entered politics very young. But what motivated me was the ideals. I think there are some core things that we have to preserve in Singapore. Multiracialism. It's a work in progress. I think we have made great strides, but we can continue to do better. And an ideal means you can never say you've arrived, but it's more a guiding light for us. I think the other ideal we have is the whole notion of social mobility in Singapore, with meritocracy as the underpinning proposition. That primary one girl should be able to look and say, I want to be, and you can fill in the blanks, and should have absolute confidence that nothing is going to stand in her way, and she just has to go out there and work hard. You feel empowered, you feel that you have a place. And the other value I say is inclusiveness, social inclusiveness, a sense of equity and making sure that despite our best efforts, there will be those who may fall through the cracks for a variety of reasons. And that is where I think as a society we need to bring them up with us. And I think that is very important, and all of us have to dedicate ourselves to this time and again, because the values are eternal, the challenges are always changing, the context is changing. What was important for social mobility 20 years ago is different to what is important for social mobility today. But social mobility is important and is evergreen. So that's what I would say. So hold fast to your ideals and to your values, because that's what defines us as individuals and as a society and as a nation, and be discerning as a voter.